Hello, and welcome to the next episode of the Live Your Spa Life show. Spa Life is a lifestyle that accepts that accomplishment and harmony coexist. The Spa and Spa Life, the SPA, is for Seek Power Always, that power within you to do your deeper work in the world. I am so intrigued to have our next guest here on the show, Tatiana Belim, who is the creator of Funnel Boards. It is the go-to system genius that big names trust when they want to beat the feeling of being overwhelmed through intelligent system design. Tatiana brings Zen to your business by creating proactive systems so you can focus on your life and your mission. Tatiana, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Diane. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Wonderful. I'd love for you to share how it is that you got into systems work, and how do you feel that people are maybe not utilizing systems to the best ability they can to make their business thrive?
Well, I started off as the software development, and actually I've been doing that for 20 years. And as I was working with the larger corporation, I had a few friends that were in a small business world, and actually what I've started to see is where all those bigger companies, the corporation, they have ability to create the systems. They have either custom design software, or they using the different other platforms to systemize and automate their business, and actually able to create the consistent results. And where on the smaller side of the business, there's often people either don't have, oftentimes it's just people have no idea those things even exist. So this is kind of how I got into the helping small businesses to create the systems and processes, and actually find the different solutions that they can utilize to make their business a lot easier and free up a lot more time in their business.
Right. Well, we've all heard that systems are supposed to simplify your business, but a lot of times when people think about it, they think about it being a lot more complicated. So what do you think some of the misconceptions are that people have around creating systems in their business?
Well, it's a truth to it, because it takes a little bit of time. It takes a little bit of effort before you actually start seeing the results. It's much easier just go and do things, opposed to creating the system and the process, how the thing's supposed to be getting done. And but once you have the system in place, this is in a few times you'll see that actually start seeing the results. So this is where the actual misconception comes in. Yes, it does take time and effort to create the systems, and you will be seeing the results in probably, let's say, if it takes you, if you are doing one task once, it probably doesn't make sense to create the system. But if there is something that you're doing repeatedly, let's say 2-3 times a week, it's probably will take you 2-3 weeks to actually nail down that process and create the system and possibly automate things. But in that time of 2-3 weeks of added work, then the magic starts happen.
Right. So what I hear you saying is really by taking the time to do it right, and when you start systemizing the things that you're doing over and over again, that gives you the foundation of your business, that it may feel a little bit slower at first, but then that actually increases your speed and the productivity and the way that you can have more impact when you take the time to put those systems in place.
Absolutely. Okay. So it does take a little bit of effort in the beginning, but then you will see that.
Right. So what are the things, you and I are both planners, we like to be able to utilize the systems, and, what are some of the things that you do to consciously create your life? And, particularly, let's talk a little bit about time, and what is it, what's your viewpoint on time?
Well, for me, the time is I think it's one of the most precious resources that we as the human beings have. And it's like, but we often find ourselves in either time wasting activities, or we are just spending time away. And what I believe is like, instead of this spending time, we should look at the time as our biggest resource that we can actually invest into things. So it's like, if you start looking at the time from that perspective of either you're spending it, wasting it, or you're investing it, it's like you will actually instantly find the different meaning for all the things that you actually start doing. So this is where I found myself. Is like, if once I start looking at that through that specific lens, that it's become really easy to prioritize things and decide on where should I spend or invest my time in.
Right. No, I absolutely agree. I mean, one of the things that I always talk to my clients about is like, what do you value? You know, and in particular, like your calendar, when you look at your calendar, it's like what's on there is what you value and what you're actually spending your time on. So if you say, you value family or self-care, but it's nowhere on your calendar and you're not investing that time in it, where you may be wasting time that is not actually supporting the things that you really want to do and prioritizing those things. And I think that one of the things when it comes down to time is, it's not just the time you're spending in your business, but what are you valuing in your life? Like what really is important to you, and really looking at that. And so when you're having some of these systems that you're talking about, you can streamline your business more, but you can also streamline your life. And so the time that you're actually doing things makes such a huge difference in how you're spending your day, the level of enjoyment that you're having, and what your life actually looks like. So I know that as entrepreneurs, there are so many things where it can feel like we can make a couple steps forward and a few steps back. And, on the journey, it's not always this straight line. What are some of the things as far as how do you deal with fear? Because there's a lot of, fearful things that can happen as an entrepreneur. And what are some of your strategies to maneuver that?
Yeah, so definitely fear is always out there. And I think it's like the number one tool to combat the fear is like, what I have is like taking the teeny action. So that helps a lot. Even if it's like writing things down or doing like just to get the momentum going is like really helpful for me. And I actually one of the people that I like to go in and like go back, retreat into my comfort zone and keep doing things that I really enjoy. And oftentimes in business, this is not what we need to do. We need to be out there. We need to be putting ourselves. And so what I find is like, I always like to play out the worst case scenario. So it's like, what worst can happen? So once I think it's like, what would be the worst case scenario? I'll just go from there. And so I have my little action step is down. So if one step is in, I know what could happen if, like in the worst case scenario, and then I'll just go and start doing like what needs to be done to not to get the worst case scenario. And also like what's been very helpful for me is like to have the support of the like-minded individuals. If you have like business peers or networking group or other groups that you can get support from. And even if somebody is like, for example, if you are doing the Facebook Live or something, somebody can show up for you. This is also like extremely helpful.
Yeah, I think it's such a powerful tool to go to worst case scenario, because I think that, in our head, we can come up with like the most craziest solutions where we automatically go to, if I do this, I'm going to be homeless, right? Or if I do this, I'm going to lose all of my money, or I won't have any clients, or no one will like me, or just, we can always in our head go to that worst case scenario.
Oh yes. And we always do.
But when we jump to it and we actually just already put it out and go, okay, and then what? And if that does happen, and then what will we do? And when we actually face that, then it actually allows us to have more, ideas that we can think through and do. Yes. I remember when I was a police officer, I would always be walking down the street and go, okay, what if somebody shoots at me or somebody jumps out? Or I would think of these worst case scenarios. And sometimes they would happen, but I'd already worked them through in my brain so that I would be more prepared. So doing these pre-exercises to be able to look at it is so important. And also I love too about, reaching out for help. I mean, I think sometimes as entrepreneurs, we think that we have to do everything on our own and that we have to figure it out. And when we really get clear on who are our mentors, our coaches, our peers, those people who've already walked some of those steps, talk about saving time. I mean, there is where you can really glean that wisdom and then, really build up your own arsenal of wisdom for yourself. So I think that is such an important thing to really build the not only the team, but the groups of people who really can support you.
Yes, absolutely. It's like very, very important. It's like to have that support network around you.
Definitely. So one of the things I always like to ask my guests as well is, the environments that we create are so important. And I'm looking at your beautiful space behind you. For those who are listening, maybe not watching, she's got this blue sofa back there and a lively plant, and just the things that we have in our space can really either inspire us or take our energy away. And we feel differently in our bedroom versus our office versus our kitchen. So what is your favorite room in your home and why?
Well, actually, I like to move around, and I find that it's really great for the productivity. And yes, I do have that clear space around me. There's also a space for me to do the yoga right here in the back of me. And I have my 12 and about 8 feet of the desk space, all on the other sides of the corner. So this is my office setup. And yes, absolutely. There is different energy, in the different spaces, and we need to be around. So there's two places, there's few places in my house that I find that I like to be in. So one of them, my office, and then I love to be in the living room as well. And this is also where there's no TV. There's just a fish tank, pretty much open space there. And I love being on the outside on the patio, and I try to get there as much as possible when the weather is allowed. We are in the eastern United States, so it's rains a lot and we get the seasons. But when it's nice out there, I do like to get out there and spend as much time as possible. And what I find is changing spaces can actually increase the productivity, and also can get our creative juices flowing. So it's when I feel I'm stuck on something, sometimes I would just go in, change the location, change something that I work on, and then come back a few minutes later to the same thing, and bam, you start to get the ideas flowing and the other things go So I find that definitely there's all kind of energy about the spaces.
Yeah, I love that. I love talking about the energy of space because each room can hold a different energy, and what we do in that space can affect our productivity in there. One of the sayings that I love is that creativity, craves clarity. So where are you having the most clarity in the spaces? If you've got too many things that are distracting, it's going to take away from that. And one of the exercises I love to do for myself and for my clients is to have people walk into each room of their home and really close their eyes and see, how do you feel in that space? What do you love in that space? What is taking your energy around that space? And I actually did kind of a experiment, if you will, where I was asking people about what they liked about their spaces and what they didn't. And what I found is a lot of people that were struggling in their business hated their office. Like it was the one room that they didn't like. It was the darkest room. There was the most piles. They didn't like spending time in there. And so when you think about the room that is supposed to inspire you to, connect with your clients, if that is the room that is taking the most of your energy, that's not going to be in alignment with what it is that you're up to. So I love how you're talking about the energy of a room, because that can have some really big impact in how we're being and what we're doing, and that sense about movement. I love you're talking about just changing your energy by moving to another room, and even just the act of walking, right? When you were walking, we are using different parts of our brain. We're looking at things from differently. So just even the slightest movement can really shift how we're looking at things. And then we can from coming from a place of being stuck to now being more open to what things look like. So I love that. And again, on that walk of the entrepreneur, there are times where we feel like disempowered, where it feels like things aren't working for us. And then we move through those where we can actually stand more in our power and we can feel more empowered. So can you share one or two times where you felt, just disempowered on your entrepreneurial journey?
I think it's for me as the service provider, it's one of the most disempowering things, or trying to work with the client that if they don't have the clear vision or clear outcome of even for a project that they want to achieve. So this is that's kind of feels like you're spinning the wheels and you're not getting to the result that you want to achieve. So I think this is for me personally would be probably the most disempowering thing.
Right. So when they're in that place, are there certain things that you do to help them get that clarity, or is your preference for them to find that clarity on their own and then they come work with you? How is it that you can help them move through that to be more clear on what they want for their result?
Well, most of the time it's I will try to help them to get to that space and to help them to find that realistic goal or have that clear picture of the outcome. So when I start working with the clients, I do have the process what we go for the project planning perspective. So we'll look at we'll try to define those clear outcomes. So, and oftentimes it helps, but sometimes it just even having that specific goal for the month project may not align to with where they're going to, or they're not sure where they're going to. So it's this is really kind of balancing game, and you really need to be able to. It's you need to know where you are going to, and definitely working with the clients that know where they are going to is extremely helpful as well.
Right. Absolutely. One of the things that I've found really helpful, again, for myself and for clients, is to find out what are your values? And I think a great tool with that is Janet Atwood's, being able to find out what is your passions, right? When you're able to really find out what those things are, then when you're looking at your business, you see what are those things aligning with, what are your strengths, right? What are the things that you absolutely don't want to do and you want to delegate? And I think when you get more clear on what those things are and where you ultimately want to be, then it makes it easier to reverse engineer that, put in the systems and structures, because you have that clear picture of where you're going. It's kind of if you're headed down the road and you don't have a map or GPS and you don't know where you're going, who knows where you're going to end up?
Yes.
So I think it's important to be able to get clear on that. And, I found that is something that can be really challenging, I think, for people, because if their ideas of where they're going is really vague, and I don't think you have to know every step, because I think that there are things that you shift and change along the way, and you learn as you go, and you can change that. But you have to have at least what's the first step you want to go to, where do you think you're headed? And so you can start getting a little bit more clear around, what that looks like, and what kind of impact you want to have. Even if you start with that, like what kind of change do you want to make in people's lives, or how do you want to support people? I think it makes it a little bit easier to then be clear on how we can help other people.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, definitely. So one of the things that we've been looking at and exploring this year is this concept of being a positive disruptor, like how it is that we're doing things in our lane that are positive and part of the impact that we want to have in the world. So in what ways are you being a positive disruptor in the world?
Well, I believe that like positive change, like any change, it's like really starts with the taking the little steps, small action. So I think it's like what we really need to do is like if we are trying to make the change, we really need to look at ourselves, think of the change that we want to make, and then look at ourselves. So what can we do to make that change? And for me, it's like what I try to do in my business is try to support other service provider and to make their life a little easier, and also by helping them get more time back and create the systems and processes in their business. And what I also like to do is like one thing's that been helpful to me, and I've seen it also being helpful to others, is like if we can be kind to each other, and the most important thing is like if we can be kind to ourselves, because it's oftentimes it's like when we're like really hard on ourselves, and sometimes we especially if we're trying to set very ambitious goals, and there's things get in the way, then we are really like beating ourselves up regarding the fact that we didn't get to that, didn't achieve those goals, or like other things, like, and especially like in 2021, it's like 2020, we all had like such goals for that year. It's like we thought it's going to be the most amazing year, and now we found ourselves in the middle of the pandemic. And I think if we take actually that year, that time to reflect and be a little bit more kinder to ourselves, I think it's like we can definitely get into a way better place.
Right. It's a good awareness that, sometimes we can be way harder on ourselves than anyone else can be, around us. And one of the things that I found that was really helpful as an entrepreneur is sometimes people think that there is the road to failure and there's the road to success. Mm-hmm. And when it was brought into my attention that failure is on the way to the road to success, it's the same road, that the things that look like failures are actually learnings. There are how we perfect things. It's how we can make shifts. And then we can start seeing some of those successes. And then it's not like all of a sudden you attain success and then ta-da, you've arrived. There's going to be more failures. There's going to be more challengings, because that is all on the same road. So when we realize that, it makes it easier when some of those challenging things happen, that within ourselves, we can go, oh, right, this is supposed to happen. This is part of how we learn. This is part of what goes on in this process. So I think it's so important to incorporate, the systems that you bring to people, and for people to get clear on, why they're here, and to have some more awareness around the journey that they have. And Tatiana, I know that our listeners are going to want to stay in contact with you. How can they do that?
If you can find me on the social media, either on Instagram or on my Facebook page, if you can send me a direct message, that would be awesome. And also, if you can email me at hello@tatianabelim.com, that would be great too. So those would be the two ways you can find me and get in touch with me.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for sharing your journey and your wisdom with our listeners, and for everyone out there who are listening. You are part of this community. You help us grow and get positive messages out in the world. Would love for you to, whatever platform you're on, to put in the comments, any questions that you have, any insights that you may have gotten from the show, and to tag both Tatiana and myself to really be able to help answer any questions that you have. And we so appreciate your 5-star ratings and subscribe and sharing, because again, that's how we get positive messages out in the world. And you are part of that message in getting it out there. So until we connect again, live your spa life. Bye for now. Bye-bye.